Hi, I'm Rick Shanklin with the National Weather Service in Paducah, Kentucky, and today's topic is severe weather product interpretation. In the National Weather Service, we take a tiered approach to our products, starting with outlooks, then generally migrating to watches and warnings and advisories. And as the certainty of the event and the time until the event draws closer, that's when we get to the warning and the advisory level. The National Weather Service products issued for severe weather begin with the Storm Prediction Center with the outlooks, which are issued by SPC out to 8 days. And the weather forecast offices of the National Weather Service issued the hazardous weather outlook out to 7 days. And the intent of the outlook is to provide a general idea of the area of concern and, in general, what is expected. The Storm Prediction Center issues the watches generally 2 to 6 hours in advance. They provide a more specific threat versus the outlook in terms of area and timing. And the warning, again, issued by the weather forecast offices, generally issued 15 to 60 minutes in advance. And they provide a very specific threat as far as the area and the timing. Of course, for counties or parts of counties, for tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings in particular. The hazardous weather outlook is a long-term product, basically broken into two main components time-wise, the first 24 hours, then a day 2 through day 7 part of the outlook. The outlook allows for considerable lead time given its duration. Watches. Some of the watches, longer-term watches, are issued 12 to 48 hours in advance or duration out from the present time. And certainly winter storm watches, flash flood watches, etc. Whereas the tornado and severe thunderstorm watches are generally issued 1 to 7 hours in advance. The risk has increased if a watch has been issued. They are issued for all types of hazardous weather events with the intent to allow time for preparation and specific actions depending upon the type of event. Advisories are generally in the 0 to 36 hour time frame. An advisory means the event is already occurring, it's imminent, or at least has a high probability of occurrence. And advisories are considered an inconvenience, at least if handled correctly. And I say that because obviously in the case of, say, a winter weather advisory, you have half inch of snow, inch of snow on the road surface, and if motorists don't travel to safe speed, take precautions, etc., it can be a dangerous, even a life-threatening situation. So, if handled correctly is the key wording there. They are issued for winter weather, wind, fog, urban flooding, and heat, to name a few. A warning is issued generally 0 to 24 hours out as far as the non-convective warnings like winter storm warnings, etc. Tornado, severe thunderstorm warnings generally 15 to 60 minutes. Flash flood warnings generally 1 to 4 hours. But when a warning is issued, the event is considered a threat to life and property, and is issued for tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, flash floods, winter storms, heat, etc., wind, longer term or duration warnings in those cases versus the tornado, thunderstorm, and flash flood events. We also issue statements which provide additional information or expand on the current watches and warnings and advisories in effect. There are the severe weather statements and the special weather statements. The special weather statements are issued also for significant weather that does not meet warning criteria. So not only to provide additional information, but again also for weather that doesn't quite make it to the threshold of warning criteria, which for a severe thunderstorm is 58 mile-an-hour winds or stronger, or hail at least 1 inch in diameter. So say we have a storm that produces 40-50 mile-an-hour winds and half-inch hail. That doesn't meet the warning criteria, but we would have a special weather statement in effect for that type of a storm. We also issue short-term graphical forecasts. They are unscheduled products. They're issued as needed. Generally cover the next couple of hours. They include details on the movement of the current weather, thunderstorms, snow that's moving into the area, that kind of thing. I also want to mention briefly as far as interpreting the probability of precipitation. That's what POP is, probability of precipitation. And of course we have POPs for every 10% increments up to 100%. But for a slight chance, that would be, for example, a 20% chance. Likely would be 60 or 70% chance. And then also we use coverage terms, primarily in the summertime, with thunderstorms, scattered, numerous, etc., widely scattered, isolated, and those correspond to the given POPs we see here. Now, when we use like scattered thunderstorms in our forecast, we have a high confidence that thunderstorms are going to occur, but that they're going to be scattered only in nature, and therefore for a given point, the probability of precipitation is going to be lower. It's going to be say 30% at your location, whereas maybe all of southern Illinois, if that's where we have scattered thunderstorms forecast, basically we're saying 100% chance of thunderstorms, but they're going to be scattered across Illinois. But just think of it at your point. Look at the probability of precipitation at your location where you're standing. That's what the rain chances are for you. Hey, again, we take a tiered approach to our products, beginning with the outlooks. So we'll dive into those, starting with the hazardous weather outlook. If you go to our website and generally the National Weather Service websites across the country, the top left part of the page, if you click on Outlooks, this particular page will pop up, at least in the case of our website, weather.gov/PAH. You can see all of our the convective outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center on the top part or row there, but what we want to concentrate on here is the latest local hazardous weather outlook. So click on that and our product will pop up. It's a text product, and again it's divided into two main time components, day 1 as well as days 2 through 7. At the bottom of it also there will be a spotter information statement, and basically provide information on whether we think spotting will be necessary in the next week for all you spotters out there. Okay, looking at the Storm Prediction Center website, there, spc.noaa.gov. Again, you can get most of these from our website by clicking on Outlooks. But here are the two of the main products that are provided from the Storm Prediction Center, the convective outlooks and the watches. The watches are also something that the local weather forecast offices are involved with. A typical scenario, if a watch is being considered, the Storm Prediction Center will send us a notification through our computer system. All of the weather forecast offices potentially impacted will engage in a conference call with the Storm Prediction Center, discuss the different aspects of the watch, maybe which counties to put in the watch, maybe the time duration of the watch, in some cases maybe even the type of watch, a severe thunderstorm watch versus a tornado watch. Many times it's a pretty straightforward thing and that may not be discussed, but if it's a marginal situation, we might discuss that as well. And within minutes of that, very few minutes of the conclusion of that conference call, the watch is issued. It comes out from the Storm Prediction Center, from the weather forecast offices, and is available, of course, through all the avenues that watches are normally disseminated through. One way you can look at the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center is by clicking on Outlooks at the front page of their website here. So kind of going back now to the outlooks for a bit. Here's an example of a day 1 outlook, and you can see the green areas for everywhere within it is where thunderstorms are forecast. Maybe a 20% chance or 80% chance, but somewhere in those green areas or within those green areas there is forecast some range precipitation probability wise of thunderstorms. And then you can see the 3 slight risk areas here across the country. So this is kind of a typical, maybe late spring, summer type of day. So what does a slight risk actually mean? We talk about that a lot within the National Weather Service and display that graphically. What does it actually mean? Well, it implies that a well-organized severe thunderstorms are expected, but in relatively small numbers and/or coverage, or that there's a small chance of a more significant severe event even. Not all severe storm events will be covered with a slight risk, certainly. That's very true of the summertime pulse type severe thunderstorms that we sometimes see, late afternoon, early evening in the summertime. So it's not intended for that. Again, for more organized severe thunderstorm scenarios, that's when we would have the slight risk issued somewhere across the area. Okay, then there's the moderate risk. Of course, that's a step up, and it implies a greater concentration of severe thunderstorms, and in most situations, a greater magnitude of severe weather. And along with that, there's going to be greater forecast confidence compared to a slight risk, certainly. It's usually reserved for days with the substantial severe storm coverage or an enhanced chance for significant severe storm outbreak. So notice the wording there, it's certainly ramping up here compared to the slight risk. Typical moderate risk day includes multiple tornadic supercells with very large hail, intense and sometimes very damaging squall lines or other individual thunderstorm damaging wind events. So it's a bigger deal. Slight risk days, we may see a few dozen of those a year at a particular location in our region. Moderate risk, many less of those, maybe 3 to 6. It probably is a typical number. Some years maybe more than that, some years less than that. So it's today certainly a much greater concern. And here's a day that with a moderate risk, the general thunderstorm forecast area. Also notice the C text, and that's what that means. If it says C text, simply read the text and see what is the concern and the exact area. It's a little bit hard sometimes without reading the text to know exactly all the area they're talking about, certainly right around the C text, but sometimes it expands maybe a little further away from that than you might expect. So here we also have the slight risk and the moderate risk, typical categorical outlook with the moderate risk. Then there's the high risk, which implies that a major severe weather outbreak is expected with large coverage of severe weather and the likelihood of extreme severe events, such as violent tornadoes, very damaging convective wind events, also are possible in that situation. The high risk category, of course, it's reserved for the most extreme events with the least forecast uncertainty. We really are confident it's going to happen, or the Storm Prediction Center is, and it's only used a few times a year. It's not many days, obviously, that you'll see a slight high risk rather issued for somewhere in the country. But this was one such day that it was, and this is actually a very large high-risk area. This was Memorial Day weekend 2004. You can see all the categories here: the general thunderstorm area, the slight risk area, the moderate risk with the purple, and the high-risk area that covers a good part of the country as well. And actually this day, our office, we did a news conference. Also did a conference call with emergency managers, which is standard for a moderate or high risk day, but we did a news conference, one of only 3 we've done in the last couple of decades. And the reason we did was not only, we don't always do those for a high risk, but it coincided with Memorial Day weekend when obviously a lot of campers and other people outside in more vulnerable situations than a typical weekend in the warm season. Okay, let's look now at the individual event probabilities. Again, the day 1 outlook here with the categorical, but we want to look at the individual event probabilities, and we'll start here with the tornado. So you saw the slight risk areas, the 3 slight risk areas. Well, if you dig down into that and click on tornado In this case, you would have seen the 2% areas, which is the lowest percent you can have for tornadoes. So that's 2% probability of a tornado occurring within 25 miles of a point anywhere within those 2% areas. And then there's the wind, which is 15%. That means there's a 15% probability of winds of at least 58 miles an hour within 25 miles of a point anywhere within that 15% area. And hail, generally about the same areas that we saw with the wind. But again, you can kind of drill down and get more detailed information by clicking on the probabilities, which are only available, by the way, currently for the day 1 outlooks. You only have the categorical for days 2, 3, for those 2 days. So here's a day 2 outlook example. Same thing when we saw earlier, slight and moderate. Again, only available as a categorical outlook. No individual tornado, hail, wind probabilities available for that. However, there are the combined probabilities available for the day 2 and the day 3 outlooks. So here we see the 15% area, which coincides with the slight risk area, by the way, and the 45% coincides with the moderate risk we saw previously. But also, the additional information in here with this is you have the 30%, which is basically an upper end slight risk, and also this hatched area. What does the hatched area mean? It means that there is a 10% or greater probability of significant severe weather within 25 miles of a given point in that hatched area. Okay, so what is significant severe weather? It is winds of at least 75 miles an hour, 65 knots, or hail at least 2 inches in diameter or bigger, or strong tornadoes. Tornadoes are F2s and above. So again, by looking at the combined probabilities, you can really glean some additional information from that. You know, for example, you're in the slight risk area and you're in a hatched 30% area. That's getting to be a pretty significant situation, even though you're still in the slight risk area. And here's a day 2 text, and you know, there's the general discussion at the top of the outlooks, and then SPC breaks down the geographical areas and provides additional discussion within those. We have a mid-Missouri Valley, Northern Plains, Upper Mississippi Valley area in this case, and a Tennessee Valley, Central and Eastern Gulf Coast states as well. And you know, detailed information can be or is available through those outlooks. Okay, then there's the day 4 through 8 outlook, and these are issued basically if there's a 30% area or above that's potentially seen in that time frame, 4 days out through 8 days out. It's pretty rare to see these, especially day 5, day 6. I have personally never seen any beyond day 6. Not saying there hasn't been a day 7 or 8 issued, but at least for the days I've looked at it for our part of the country, I've not found anything beyond a day 6. But bottom line is, if you see an outlook, an area outlined in the day 4 to 8, that should really tell you that, you know, this is probably a pretty significant system that's headed our way, because there's got to be quite a bit of confidence. And that is a big problem or challenge with the outlooks days 4 through 8, is the models really honing in on a solution. Typically they're vary quite a bit in their solutions as you get a week or so out, and it makes it hard to for the Storm Prediction Center in this case to outline an area. Okay, so that brings us up through our outlooks. We're going to take a pause here, and we're going to have a part 2 of this, so be sure and check it out, and we'll talk about experimental outlooks, at least at the time of this recording, from the Storm Prediction Center. Some new information on that, and then really drill down into our watches and warnings on part 2. So thank you for tuning in to this first section of severe weather product interpretation.